I've got the Tamron 18-400 here, a lens with an amazing amount of focal range packed in and potentially incredibly versatile. I thought it would be fun to take it on a serious adventure. We're going to go whale watching with San Juan Safaris in Friday Harbor, and we're on our way there right now on a ferry. But first I want to tell you that this video is brought to you by Squarespace. Whether you need a website, online gallery, store, or domain, make it with Squarespace. You can find out more at the link right down below, and we thank them so much for their support making videos like this possible. 18-400, that is a fantastic focal range. How does it measure up in the real world? Well, on this trip I've brought along the Sigma 100-400, a dedicated zoom lens. I'm curious to see how that matches up against this, along with the Sigma 24-105, a shorter range do-it-all lens that I know is exceptionally sharp. So we're on this ferry, headed to Friday Harbor, where we're going to pick up the whale watching trip with the San Juan Safari folks. And there's beautiful, gorgeous scenery sliding by right now, so I'm dying to go shoot that and start to generate some first impressions of this lens. I can shoot at 18 here, show our ferry, and show the ferry in the distance with some of this nice scenery. And now I can zoom in. I don't know, here's a 200 shot, which isolates the ferry. I'm getting some nice reflections there too. And I can go all the way to 400. And there's some tourists on the boat just like us, snapping pictures, waving. And now I'm seeing Mount Baker in the background as well. So I'm gonna find a focal length that works for that. And we've got the ferry, we've got those repeating lines in the background. We've got a really nice composition. But now, ferry's leaving, so let's concentrate on these layers and a little bit of fog laying back there. But one of the things I'm noticing is that it's capably focusing, really having no issue even out at the far range. Oh, we've got a nice little sailboat coming up. So the water's pretty still right now and nice morning light still. I'm gonna shoot this reflection of the sailboat. And I'm gonna start kind of pulled out, maybe around 70 or 50 to give a sense of the space. Put that boat in the lower third. And now I'm gonna really zoom in and really focus on the boat and the rocky coastline going by behind it. I mean, we'll come back and we'll talk about the sharpness of these shots down the road, but I mean, again, the versatility is blowing me away that I can get this kind of wide shot that shows that sailboat out by itself in this passageway, or then zoom all the way in and get a nice tight reflection shot. It's pretty sweet. This focal range is just fantastic. I can get these tight shots of the details and then pull out and get a really nice wide shot. I mean, it does have this kind of goofy looking telescoping, and it gets a lot larger when you're zoomed out to 400. And even though it's weather resistant, and that includes dust as well, I do imagine that this is going to be an avenue for dust to gather in at some point in the future. And you also have to think about lens creep. You know, that's when the lens hangs down and slowly grows longer and longer. It's got a lock switch that will lock it at 18, which is fairly typical in this price range, but you can't lock it at any place else. But overall, I'm pretty impressed, and I'm really excited to put it to test with some more wildlife here in just a few minutes, as I think we're almost to Friday Harbor in San Juan Safaris. We pulled into Friday Harbor. We actually got here a little early, and it's a fantastic time to wander around on the dock. So many cool and interesting boats, and test the wider angle capabilities of this lens, and maybe throw it up against something like the Sigma 24-105. So let's head out on the docks and see what we can find for interesting compositions and pictures. So from up above, I noticed that we've got this older boat here, peeling paint, lots of great textures, and it's got a fantastic reflection right now. So I'm gonna get down and focus, get just the bow, just the reflection, really tight shot. So one thing, you know, the Sigma 24-105 is a full frame lens. It's a bigger, heavier lens, and the fact that it starts at 24, you know, is a little bit more limiting than working with this crop sensor lens. It starts nicely at 18 and gives you a nice wide shot. In this example here, I think I'm ended up zooming in a little bit to really kind of fill the frame with my subject, so it's not really showing a difference, but there are times where you want to go a little bit wider than 24. All right, so, you know, looking at these two lenses side by side, not shooting with them for a second, you know, the Tamron is a plastic build quality. And I like it. It seems decent and well made. It's definitely part of their new line that is engineered or looks engineered well, but it doesn't stand up that well against the 24-105 from Sigma, which is this all metal construction. Feels much beefier, larger glass, but of course this is full frame, heavier and more expensive. It's time to be on the ferry. So in this shot, I think this is an interesting place where it illustrates, you know, sometimes using full frame lenses on crop is not the best, even if it is a higher quality lens. Starting at 24 can be limiting in some situations on a crop, and with the Tamron being able to shoot at 18, that gives you just a little bit more flexibility. So take a look and see how those shots line up here. All right, so we're just about to get on our boat and head out for some cool wildlife watching. I'm really excited. There's potential of all kinds of wildlife, from whales to seals to birds like bald eagles. I think it's really going to challenge the focal range of this lens and be a great real world test from some stuff that's close, but a lot of it's going to be out at that longer distances. I'm really excited to head out on the water with San Juan Safaris as well. These guys have been doing it forever and they know what they're doing. And if there are whales out there, they're going to find them for us. Let's go. All right, so you know, we've got some beautiful scenery as we're headed out. No wildlife yet, but I think this is a great time. We got this Mount Baker in the distance. I'm just gonna see how the 100 to 400 compares to the Tamron out at those longer focal lengths. Now the 100 to 400 has two different versions of stabilization. It's also got some custom focus modes. You can really dial that in. That's lacking on the Tamron. But again, this is a dedicated zoom lens, telephoto. This is a dedicated telephoto. And I wouldn't expect that on a more do-it-all lens. So one of the things I noticed, not surprisingly, is the boat's moving a good bit. So this is a really good test of the stabilization of both of these lenses. And just to see how they do, looking through the camera, feels like the 100 to 400 is giving me just a little bit better stabilization. But I'm gonna take a couple more test shots at a competing whale watching boat that's tailing us, see how it looks. So we're at this spot called Whale Rock, which has a bunch of stellar sea lions hauled out on it, huge, up to 11 feet long. This high contrast scene, the lens is focusing quick and looks accurate to me. I'm pretty impressed with it. I have noticed in lower contrast scenes, if it struggles to focus and it has to look for focus, it hunts over the entire range, which with an 18 to 400 lens, that takes it a second or two. So that's an issue. But again, focus seems snappy in most of these cases. So I've thrown the 100 to 400 on just to make some comparisons here. And again, can't really tell quality and sharpness differences, but focus does seem a little faster. And as I said, you got a shorter range when it does lose focus, and you can limit that even more with the focus limiter switch, so that if I do lose focus, it's only going to search from 6 meters out to infinity. It doesn't search the whole range. Feels very snappy, feels very good. So, you know, dedicated zoom lens is going to give you some advantages in this case, but if something pops up right next to the boat, 100 to 400, I'm not going to be as equipped. All right, so our guide has just updated our location on the map. We started at Friday Harbor, saw those bunch of stellar seals here where it says breaching stellar sea lion. And then we're kind of make our way out into the strait. I see Canada, I see America, and we're probably just going to kind of continue on up through here, hoping we see some whales. Another thing I just noticed is you don't have full-time manual focus on this Tamron. You got to switch it to manual focus if you want to do any manual adjustment of the lens, whereas on the Sigma, you do have that. We've come right up on the lighthouse now, so I'll take a couple of shots again, showcasing the range from 18, and kind of shows this whole little bit of a wild side to the island here, and zoom way in and just fill the frame with the church. Sorry, looks like a church, but it's a lighthouse. I noticed once I zoomed into 400, I mean, you got people laying in a hammock up there on the hillside. It's just stuff that you wouldn't capture if you can't zoom to that level. All right, so we just see a bald eagle. He's far, but because I can zoom into 400, I can capture him. I'm gonna take a picture at 18 just to see how far away that is and back. What I'll probably do is crop these a little bit just to fill them in the frame a little bit more. We'll see if that looks interesting or not. Certainly a more possible shot when you're out at 400, but even at 400, he's a little small. All right, so we've spotted whales. They're a little ways away, even with a 400 lens, so we're headed off over there. See if we can get a little closer. So we just had a humpback sighting just off that side of the boat, port, I think those guys say. And they can dive down, he told us, just for as much as 12-15 minutes. So we're just kind of hanging out here. Saw some more Dall's porpoise as we're waiting for him to come back up. But God did just catch a glimpse of the tail and a couple of blows. Hopefully he'll come back up nice and close. Not super close, but with the 400, I can get in there, and I've got some nice tail shots. It's actually kind of nice. He's come up on both sides of the boat now, so we've got some backlit shots and some shots with the sun right on him. All right, so we're just finishing here and headed back towards home. Caught a couple of glimpses of a humpback whale, really cool. Not super close ever, but really neat experience. Really neat to be able to hear him breathe as he came up. And I think I got some good shots of the tail as well. Now, let's talk about this lens for a second. I really don't have any feature complaints. I've been impressed with it out here. One of the things that I was kind of challenging it to do is in this low contrast water reflection that we have, see if it would unfocus or refocus or hunt, and it really seemed to nail focus every time I put it on a good subject. So I'm happy. Shots seem to be good. I'm going to reserve final judgment for some focus or some pixel peeping on focus and contrast and colors when we get back into Lightroom. But overall, it's been a fantastic day out here on the water, and I think that the focal range this lens provides is immensely versatile. It's a pretty sweet view. All right, so we're actually back on the ferry, leaving Friday Harbor and San Juan Safaris behind. I want to take a moment and thank San Juan Safaris. That was a fantastic day out on the water. We did have that whale sighting, and it just was beautiful. And the captain and our naturalists on board were full of great information, just kind of sharing everything that we saw. A lot of fun, great testing ground for these lenses. So for most of the day, I had the 18-400 on. When I threw that Sigma 100-400 on, it does look like it gives you a little bit more sharpness, a little bit more contrast out at the tele end of that. And I'd expect that from a dedicated telephoto lens that the Sigma is. Same with actually the Sigma 24-105. I mean, both of those are heavier, more expensive, full frame design lenses. They seem to give you a little bit better performance, but overall, I've got no real complaints about this lens. As you'll see in a minute when we'll take a deep dive in Lightroom and really kind of look at some comparisons. But before we get that, I want to also thank Squarespace for their sponsorship of this. They provide a beautiful place to share your work. You go out on a trip like this and you make fun pictures, you want some place to put those pictures online where they look good and the website around them looks good, and Squarespace makes that fast, easy, and affordable. You can save 10% off your order of a domain or site by going to squarespace.com/photorectv, and your use of that link really helps us, and of course, thanks again to Squarespace for making videos like this possible. Not only do they allow for displaying your work, but you can sell it through Squarespace, and that 24/7 customer service that they provide is really nice when you feel like you need a helping hand in getting something worked out. So thanks them for their support. Let's go take a look in Lightroom at how these lenses did. We're back from the whale watching, and I've taken a few moments to pull out some pictures that I think serve to show the capabilities of this lens and some brief comparisons against the two other lenses that I mentioned. You can download the full raw images that I'm about to show you at a link right down below this video. Let's take a look. So in our first comparison, we have the Tamron and the Sigma 24-105. Let's zoom in and bring them both to that same level and see if it's immediately apparent to you which one is the massively ranged 18-400 Tamron and which is the more reasonable range Sigma 24-105 that also happens to be a full frame and more expensive lens. The answer is Tamron is on the left, the Sigma is on the right, and at these focal lengths and with these two lenses I saw very little differences in sharpness. When I did see a difference, the Sigma 24-105 was sharper and produced slightly better colors and contrast, especially in more challenging lighting. But overall, very impressed with how the Tamron holds up in this lower normal focal range. Switching to an example where we're comparing the Tamron 18-400 versus the Sigma 100-400 out at 400 at the long range. These are completely unedited straight out of the camera. And I think it's very difficult to tell a difference between these two. Now there is some shifting in perspectives here because I was shooting from a moving boat. But again, representative of lots of different shots that I took, I saw very little difference in many of the more scenic shots out at 400 between these two lenses. The Tamron 18-400 is on the left and the Sigma 100-400 is on the right. And in our last example, we're looking at the Tamron 18-400 on the left and the Sigma 100-400 on the right, both at about 300 millimeters and similar settings. I see slightly better colors and contrast out of the Sigma at this focal length and in this setting with this more harsh light, but again, happy with the 18-400. And overall, very impressed with the lens. And that's it. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you to San Juan Safaris and Squarespace for their sponsorship of this video. You can find the links to all of that necessary and helpful information right down below, along with where to purchase these lenses. Your use of those links helps support this website. And if you found this all useful, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I will be back with additional comparisons against a couple other lenses that I think this Tamron 18-400 should be matched up against in the very near future. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.